Hello my beautiful art babies, this is Sarah Simpson and I'm back with a new video, and today I'm going to take you through the process of how I put together a comic book page. My first comic book page. I don't have a lot of experience in comic book art, and in fact I'd say I have zero experience in comic book art aside from just being a fan of some comic books. But I'm taking an art class and it's called Make Art That Sells Assignment Bootcamp, and this assignment this month is to make a comic book page, if you haven't figured that out already. And so today I'm going to take you through the process of how I figured out how to put together this comic book page right here. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Don't forget all the lovely things we plan to do today.
The first step for me is to go into my planning sketchbook and make a bunch of messy sketches, just trying to think about what I wanted my comic to be about. Our design brief was that we had a list of objects. So one of those objects was a dice, another was hot sauce, there was like a matchbook, there was all sorts of things. And we had to build a little story around that, the emphasis being more on the illustration than a cohesive story, but it could be like a page out of a longer story, it doesn't matter. But I chose the dice and the hot sauce, and I decided to do a story about two boys doing like a hot sauce challenge. They rolled the dice and the loser had to try the hot sauce first. So that's what I started with. Okay, so at this point I spent a couple days just kind of working on some thumbnails and figuring out what I wanted my concept to be, and doing some really ugly sketches in my ugly sketchbook. And once I kind of had an idea of what I wanted my layout to be, I put together a layout in Adobe Illustrator and then I printed it off. I'll show you. I didn't record myself making it. I forgot. But so here's just like a very simple template because of what I knew I wanted my layout to be and what I wanted my boxes to be. And then I just printed that out and I drew my pencils directly onto my template. Okay, so these are the pencils that I drew right onto my template that I printed out. And yeah, pretty simple. And then I scanned it in and I did like a little practice inking and coloring. Pretty much every step of the way I have scanned in what I've been working on in case I need to redo that step. So now I'm getting out my light table so that I can transfer my final drawing onto my nicer piece of paper. And I've had this light table for a couple years now. I bought it off of Amazon. When I bought it, I think it was around $20. And to power it, I often use this external battery or travel battery that you can like use for your phone. I just use that to power the light table, and then you put your art on it or your pencils on it, and then you put your paper over that, and then you can see your art through it, and I just trace over it. And today I'm using an erasable colored pencil. I've started using that instead of just regular pencils because I find that regular pencils, the graphite tends to smear and it can make the colors a little bit muddy. And yeah, this just avoids that. And the type of paper that I'm using for my final piece is just some Bristol paper. I'm finally using up this pad that I've had for a couple of years. So I have my drawing all transferred over. I made a couple of little adjustments and now I'm actually ready to ink. So I'm using my Tombow Fudensuke. It's considered a brush pen. It's kind of like a stiffer brush pen, and I thought I'd show you at the beginning here how slow I actually go when I'm inking. I know when the footage is sped up, it might look like I go really fast, but I don't. I take my time. This page took me about an hour just to do the inking part. Am I the best inker in the world? Definitely not. Do I really enjoy using brush pens? Yes, I do. I find using a brush pen so satisfying. Seeing the ink go down on the paper. I love the imperfectness that you get with a brush pen, or at least I get. I love the way you can vary the line to get thin and thick lines. A lot of the artists that I'm inspired by are artists like Scotty Young. In particular, I really like I Hate Fairyland, and I just love his bold, imperfect line art style and also the humor that he incorporates into his art. And then another artist that I really like that I see on Instagram a lot is Mike Lowery. And I actually think he might use a Sharpie, but I just love kind of that imperfect, bold line art, like that combination of imperfect drawings, but being bold about it. I think that's what I like. And if you guys have watched some of my other videos, you might know that I'm really interested in children's book art, and that's something I've had an eye on for a long time. And so I'm always looking for inspiration in children's book art. And honestly, I feel like it's not necessarily a popular style, at least not right now, to use these kind of thick line art. But one artist that I do like a lot is Ryan T. Higgins, and in particular, I really like We Don't Eat Our Classmates. I just think that's such a cute series, and I love the thick lines and the way he colors it. My biggest tip for using a brush pen, aside from just practicing a lot, is to pay attention to where you're putting your different line weights. For example, wherever your light source is, that is where your line weight's going to be the lightest. And wherever your shadows are, that's where your line weights are going to be the thickest. So let's just say you are lighting something from the top. So like the head of your character, the top of their head, the lines might be very light, or even maybe you break the lines right there. And then like the bottom of their feet, you're going to have like some thick, heavy lines, because that's where there's going to be a lot of shadow. It's like connecting with the ground there. So that's my biggest tip for using brush pen and being able to add some dimension to your artwork. But to be totally honest, I know that I'm not the best brush pen artist, and I often cover up my mistakes by coloring over it. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say about brush pen, and we'll listen to a nice little song while we finish the last couple minutes of this inking session. Izzy. Okay, so now we're on to my favorite part of the process, which is the coloring part. And when I was planning my color palette, I knew that I was going to want some orangey colors for that fire. And so then I selected a blue-green color or a teal color. I always start with my complementary colors. First of all, I love a complementary color combination, like a teal and an orange. That's classic. Or a teal and a pink looks, I love that, the way that looks together. And so I'll usually kind of start with my two like complementary colors that I want to include in the piece. And then I'll add in some colors that are harmonious to those. So since I had some blue greens, I could select some greens. They're right there near the blue greens on the color palette. And with my oranges, I can move into a little bit of the pinks and the reds. So I think it turned out pretty well. And yeah, I don't have too much else to say about the coloring process itself. If you're looking for some Copic tips, I have a video on that called Copic Markers for Noobs. And otherwise, I will let you enjoy some tunes while we watch this piece. I wanted to quickly add that my coloring session was quite long. I had a couple hours of footage here, so I did chop out sections of it. I hope it's not too choppy, but I didn't think you wanted to sit here for a full 10 minutes to see the coloring process, so I chopped it down a bit. And yeah, otherwise enjoy seeing this come into full color. check-in. So here's where I'm at. I took a couple days off from working on the comic book page because I was a little frustrated with it and I didn't know, I couldn't decide what direction I was going to go. So I do think if you have the time, if you're working on a project and you're at a frustrated stage, sometimes it can be helpful to take a day or two off and then come back to it with fresh eyes. And I feel like you can sometimes better evaluate your artwork. And so what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just scan it in like I usually would do when I make a traditional art piece and I want to make it into a print. So I'm going to scan it in. I'm going to do my color adjustments in Photoshop. And then I'm going to work on it in Procreate and try to like fix some little areas of it that are bothering me. Maybe adjust the background on the top part. And yeah, that's the gist of it. So let's go ahead and get started on that. I didn't do a ton of editing or changing in Procreate. Basically what I did was strengthen up some of the line art around the boxes in particular. I didn't like the way those looked, and for consistency then I ended up adding some outlines other places so I didn't have just thick outlines there. And there was an area on the chin that was bothering me on the bottom where the kid is belching. I didn't like how the line was intersecting the skull of the other character. So I adjusted that and I outlined the hot sauce and added some bigger hot sauce droplets for more drama, and that was pretty much it. Thank you so much for joining me for this little video. I hope it was interesting, informative, inspiring, something. I hope it makes you feel something. And if it did, please subscribe to my channel. Give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend. I share videos every other Sunday. I'm also on Instagram at @BySarahSimpson, and I'm usually over there a couple times a week. And until next time, keep on arting in the real world. Bye.